Hi, everyone. I am Siris Rivas-Verdejo, and this is Choosing a Different Future. I am here with Antonio Wells. Hi, Antonio.
Good morning, Ms. Rivas. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. And Antonio, I know Antonio from the Rape Crisis Center here in Savannah. He served for the past 4 years there as a volunteer administrator and an intern coordinator. I volunteer at the Rape Crisis Center, and I've gotten to get to know Antonio a little bit, and hopefully you'll get to know him even more over the course of this chat. But he plays a key role in the organization, recruiting and training volunteer advocates there to provide in-person support to survivors of rape and sexual abuse, and from the emergency department as well. So there is emergency departments throughout the city of Savannah. He also coordinates the coastal empire that we call this area here, and works in tandem with the sexual assault nurse examiners. You might know some of them as SANE nurses, and law enforcement during the initial investigative process. I've learned so much from Antonio so far, and it's been a real pleasure to
Uh,
be able to contribute to the Rape Crisis Center of Savannah. Um, the other part that I found very interesting when I first met Antonio is that before his current position, he served in the United States Army. He retired honorably after serving for almost 25 years, and he served in a variety of other different duty assignments, including several combat tours during his tenure in the military. He's received numerous awards, not really surprising, Antonio, knowing you, medals and battlefield citations, including the Bronze V. Is it Bronze 5, actually?
it's a Bronze D device for
It is
Valor.
it is say the Bronze V. I'm reading from here a little bit, some of my notes, for the display of magnificent valor on the battlefield. There is much, much more. I will let Antonio mention some of those things, but I find it particularly interesting that in a field of nonprofit work, a lot of times it's dominated by women, depending on the type of nonprofit organization. And particularly a rape crisis center, it's often more women that are working there, and that here you are, and your staff and your colleagues adore you, love working with you, rave about you. I'm curious, how did you find yourself working there after the military?
Well, that's an interesting question. I retired in 2014 from the United States Army, as you mentioned earlier. So I took some time off. I took about 2 years off, and I felt compelled. I had to get back out there and get acclimated to the civilian sector. So I visited the United Way because a friend of mine worked there, and she was helping me put together my resume. And from reading my uh, past experiences in the military, she said, "Hey, I know a position that you would be great for," and that was the volunteer coordinator for the Rape Crisis of the Coastal Empire. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you know. So she said, "No, Antonio, just send them your stuff and just see what they say." So I got a call from the executive director, and she invited me in for an interview, and uh, and she offered me the position based on my experience in the military. Where in the military, uh, senior non-commissioned officers are selected for special duty assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So like either you become a drill sergeant, drill instructor, training new recruits, a recruiter, bringing civilians into the fold,
Mm-hmm.
or like other special duties like equal opportunity advisor, sexual assault response coordinators. So I was
Oh,
selected
wow.
to.
So you already
Right,
had some experiences in the
right, right,
military that were similar, even
right,
if
right.
though different. There's some overlap in skill set. Uh-huh.
Yes, yes. So I wound up being, when I was selected to be an equal opportunity advisor, I was the sexual assault response coordinator for the 3rd Chemical Brigade, which is about 10,000 people,
Mm,
civilian and trainees. So that's why I gained my experience as a in the sexual response or sexual assault arena as
mhm,
far as
mhm.
advocacy, because I was responsible for training advocates.
Yeah.
in the military. So they saw that on my resume and said, "Hey, come on in." And they didn't hold me being a male against me. They said I was the best candidate, and I was selected to be the volunteer administrator for the Rape Crisis Center.
And in my point of view, they're very lucky to have you. You're very dedicated. There's one of the things that I notice is that you make yourself very available to the volunteers, and you spend a lot of time with the social events and with, meetings and trainings with the crisis center as well. But you also have a family.
Right, right. Yes, I reside in Hinesville, Georgia, with my wife and 2 children and our Yorkie.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so that's why I retired in Hinesville, Georgia. And it's funny you mentioned earlier, like how the response, because I didn't know how to, from when I joined the Rape Crisis Center, working with a predominant female organization. Well, actually, I am the only male, besides maybe 1 or 2 board members. But day to day, I am the only male that works there. But I find it unique how they accepted me because I think I bring a different level from my military experience, and it worked twofold because they helped me chill out versus I kind of move with a more, sense of urgency, and
Mhm.
and how I form my relationships, as you well know, as being one of the volunteers with our organization, how I'm more family driven in
Yeah.
that aspect because that's how we were in the military. You know,
Mhm.
you eat together, you fight together, you play together. That's my mentality. So
Mhm. Mhm. It's very nurturing. It's great to be in an organization and work with an organization that in which you feel like they have your back. Like, and
yes,
you're this living model of that, and it seems to permeate throughout the entire organization. And I really love that because even when you're not seeing the other volunteers, you know that you can call them and reach out to them. You can talk with them. You can talk with the director. There's an accessibility there that is
right,
very comforting. And, we're dealing with some pretty heavy things, some things that
yeah,
are,
yeah.
you're Yorkie. Oh,
Oh
honey.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just hoping he gets to be all right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He has a pinched nerve. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I hope we're gonna flow some energy his way. Does he want some of your attention right now?
Oh no, no, no. He's rehabilitating, so he's trying to walk in, and when he hits his nerve a little bit, then he winces in pain a little bit. So,
Oh, I hope he feels better soon.
well,
And
thank
that
you, thank
that's
you.
one of the things that I'm curious about with one of the things that I'm curious about with the organization work too, and how you balance that work with family duties like that. What the balance, and also just how one may influence the other. Like, do you notice that? Do you ever take any of that home and then it impacts family life, or your family life is informing your work at the center?
Well, I hate always going back to the military, but that's what I did for 25 years, so that's pretty much all I know. And how I manage my time is based on how I was trained or what I'm used to. Uh, it's like when I'm at the center, I'm dedicated to the mission, but once I leave, you got to kind of leave that stuff, at the front door because it will consume you.
Yeah.
Um, Especially, yeah, it will consume you. And we're real big about self care, as you probably remember through the interview process we had. We're very, very, very careful about, like, for example, I'm on call right now for
Mhm.
cases. So if I get a call, I don't involve the other, say, my colleagues in the process because it's their downtime. It's their
Mhm.
downtime. So, and they do the same likewise.
Mhm.
So we, because it's very nasty business where we're in. So we have to manage our time to whereas once we're there, we do our job, but when we go home, we have to focus on our family and other outside positive things because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I said, all that negativity will consume you. It's like law enforcement. You'll stress yourself out if you constantly worry about the one that got away, or
Yeah.
I wonder how that client is doing right now. And we're only human. We do think about it, but if we let it consume us, then we can't focus on our family or our issues.
Right, right. I'm
Yeah, and
curious,
then
so for you personally, what are some of the things that you find to be very helpful and effective for you to decompress, to leave that behind, to let that go and not let that consume you? Is there anything specific that you do for your own self-care?
wow, yeah,
Yeah.
exercise, exercise, maintain a strong spiritual connection, uh, uh, being engaged in the community. I volunteer a lot. So you spending time with the kids, sporting events, stuff like that, because you want to see the positive in the world. You don't want to say, well, wow, everything I see is negative because
Mm.
what I deal with on a daily basis. But there are a lot of positive things out there, to enjoy in life, and that's when you have to embrace that
Yeah.
and just
And that's part
realize,
of
like,
what we're doing is I
right,
recall talking with you a little bit about, some interactions with people that have been assaulted or have been raped, and being there in some of the most trying, most difficult, most horrific moments of someone's life and reminding them of
hmm
the beauty, of what's positive, of what's waiting for them, of giving them hope again by you being hopeful with them
right,
is
because you
really
will.
big. And if you don't have that for yourself and in your own life, how can you invite anyone else to that?
Right, exactly. And one way I relate to our clients, because on a level, someone who is traumatized by sexual assault or rape um, tend to develop, post traumatic stress disorders. And me, as a combat veteran, I suffer from that as well. And so I understand and I get the connection with when I'm dealing with clients.
Mm.
And a lot of my volunteers who are survivors and or have been impacted by being a family member of a survivor or a friend. So I look at it through different lenses, versus someone who hasn't experienced a significant emotional event.
Yeah.
And that's why to go back to what you were saying, what got me through my PTSD was knowing how to disconnect from those things that may trigger me.
Yeah.
So, so self care is very important. Very important.
And I think that that's a really important point and a really great point that you made, because a lot of people separate the PTSD is, they usually have this certain picture in their head with
hmm
PTSD. Maybe it is
Right.
a vet, maybe it is someone in assault, but there's so many different ways that it can show up. And
Right.
instead of it being something that's crippling you, or that's something that's a wrongness of you, you can actually redirect that. And in your own journey,
Right.
now that you've moved beyond it, you're continually to choose beyond it, you are now getting to invite other people
Right.
that
You have
not
to.
in the same type of PTSD, not the same circumstances, but there's this similar
Right.
vibration there that you're like, hey, I've walked this path in a different way that's
Right.
somewhat similar. I get some of the things that you might be dealing with, not in all entirety, right? But I get some of the things
Right.
that you're dealing with, and just know that it gets better and it can get better. And this isn't
Right.
all that you are. That's huge. Um,
It.
and
It is.
and and I think that there's a lot of vets out there, be it men or women, who don't really get how they could actually contribute still, even if they have experienced PTSD, how they can transition to civilian life, which can be very challenging for many. I mean, you're probably
Right.
familiar with the statistics around that better than me.
hmm
And yet, maybe volunteer work is a way for them to to have that transition be a little bit smoother. I talked with another vet who works with
Mhm.
an organization that talks about all the different ways of cleaning the rivers here in Savannah. And he said, you know, us, we're gonna keep being soldiers. We like a mission. So volunteer work is this really powerful way to give soldiers a mission, a purpose, a task that continues to have them be of service in a way, in a different way, and be a contribution to the world because they continue to want to be a contribution. One of the things I would love to see is for people to get that it's not just the things that we do that are a contribution, it's how we be in the world is also a contribution. And what I mean by that is I met you even before I knew you were a vet, even before, you know, we talked about all these other details, and you were just so kind. You were just so, there's a space of non-judgment about you. There's this whole like, hey, you know, this level of presence, of engagement that is amazing and you don't always see in people in the world. And that's you being you. It wasn't like just
Yeah.
that one moment to get me in the door and make sure I volunteered. This
Right.
is you all the time. And
Right.
that's a contribution as well. If you didn't do
Right.
anything else, if you weren't a volunteer, if you weren't this coordinator, an advocate, you're still a contribution by being that. And then on top of that, you've chosen to do these amazing other things that get to gosh, change the world, because this isn't,
Right.
you know, this is one organization of many that are looking to create something different in the world. Less violence,
Right.
less
Right.
abuse, less human trafficking and assaults and all these different things, more awareness about this. So I just don't want you to leave here today without acknowledging that I'm impressed and inspired by what you all and you and everyone at the Rape Crisis Center are doing. And even if you weren't doing that, I know that you're awesome. You're a contribution beyond that.
No, yeah, no, you're too kind. You know, I just do what compels me. You know, I've always been a giver, a helper. Yeah, I guess that's why, you know, I chose my previous profession, because someone has to do it. It's just like now with my current profession and working with the advocates and the staff. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to have rape crisis centers throughout the nation, but someone has to do it because
Mhm.
we live in a less than perfect world.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know, I just take and I commend people like yourself who volunteer their time to assist in our mission, our cause, because without volunteers, we are, I'm not even talking about the Rape Crisis Center just alone in the coastal empire, but throughout the nation, throughout the world, not exist without the help of volunteers, because
So
we could not
much.
do it
Yeah.
alone. We
Thank
cannot
you.
do it
Yeah.
alone.
It's all of us together in this. And here's the other thing too, is I'm curious, um, how, gosh, I have like 5 questions that are popping in my head. It's like, which one
Hmm.
first? It's like, how have your brothers and sisters in the military, how have they responded to you doing this type of work now? Were some of them surprised, some of them like, of course, that's totally, like, that makes sense. Like, is there a mix? Like, what's been the response?
It's been a mix because it's like you have to have different personas in order to survive. That's the way I see it. And when I was in the military, I was that. If you ever watched the movie Platoon with Charlie Sheen,
I
and
watched it years ago. You're gonna have to remind me about
right,
it.
right. So Tom Berenger's character, that platoon sergeant. If you were going to describe me in a military setting, right, that would be me. My
Mm,
yeah, exempting the trying to kill his soldiers thing, but yeah, that would be me. That hard driven, mission orientated, you know, wherever, you know, complete the mission at whatever cost,
mhm.
hard nosed individual. And then now in my civilian side is like, okay, you work for what? A rape crisis center? You? It's like
And you're
switched off.
actually interacting with the survivors. Like, don't they keep you in an office, right? Like you're not gonna actually, but you do. You are interact.
Right,
You're actually going to the hospitals and talking to the
right,
survivors as well, in addition to the
right.
volunteers. You're just as
Yes.
much of a volunteer and doing the shifts as the other volunteers.
Right. And
So,
it's almost, yes, it's almost like how I always used to tell people, when you have two extremes, more times than less, you're connected, you're the same. The two ends of parallels of an extreme. So it was easy for me to transition because I care for my soldiers. I care about the mission just like I care about the mission now. I care, and I always say to the other staff members, my volunteers are like my troops. That's how I see it. That's how I embrace that. So
mhm.
that's why I can place myself in this box and naturally just, because everything I do is organic with the volunteers. It's not like you stated earlier, it's not a ploy to get you in the door to volunteer. It's me. You know,
Mhm.
I tell them straight up, I'm very direct. I'm very engaged with the volunteers. I embrace the volunteers like, wow, we're a
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
concept, team oriented. I always say this all the time, and I got this from military. You may see that on some of my emails when I say one team, one fight. I truly believe in that moniker. One team, one fight, because no one is stronger than the team. So that's
Mhm.
how I look at
Mhm.
that. So that's how I was, so that mixed bag of people who know me, like, oh, well, then again, I can see him doing this job because, yeah, I always put forth my best effort into anything I did, so, or will do. So some get it, some don't, but you know,
Yeah, and that's on them, right? It's a give. It's You're just gonna keep doing what's gonna work for you, what you know is gonna create more.
right, right. Because
So,
some people saw the streams. Some people saw me where I was in survival mode, and some people see me in caring mode, and
yeah, yeah,
I'm like
and
in
that's
the
all
middle.
you. It's like it's not one or the other. Exactly.
Right, right. I'm a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think we all are. We might not all
Right.
acknowledge it, but I'm pretty sure if you don't have those nuances, I think you'd be pretty boring if you didn't.
Right, 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 right. You can't be one way all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a spectrum. Yes,
I
yes, yes.
agree. I agree. One of the many things to love about you.
Full
So I'm
spectrum.
curious. So what future would you like to see in the world?
Well, um, I would like to see a future eradicated uh, of sexual violence. Okay, I have daughters. And wow, from working at the crisis center, it just brings that level, it just amplifies that level of fear I have for my daughters.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to see a world that better understands and is more compassionate and sympathetic and empathetic to those who are different than them. Okay, because like one thing, we talk, like, for example, like say take sexual harassment, right, which is a form of gender discrimination. It's the culture. I would like to see the culture change because, like, for example, we have a victim. Say we have a victim of rape, and the first thing they want to say, oh, she was sexually assaulted. No, she was raped. A crime was committed. For example, like when you go on a case sometimes, and we may call you and say, okay, the hospital called us directly instead of calling the law enforcement officials, and I will get on the phone with them prior to calling you and say, why didn't you call law enforcement first? We're not a law enforcement agency.
Mhm.
Well, we're calling a rape crisis. No, but a crime has been committed. Why are you calling us first? You should call law enforcement. See, that's the mentality. It's like if someone walked in who was a stabbing victim or a gunshot victim, the first thing they'll do is call law enforcement. So why wouldn't you do the same thing for somebody who came in and say, "Hey, I just been raped"? You know.
Mhm.
So if I could change anything, it would be the mentality. how we look at stuff like this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And how old are your daughters right now?
I have one who's 32 and one who's 16.
Okay.
Yeah, my
That's
oldest daughter is a teacher, so yeah.
yay, teachers. I have
Yes,
lots of teachers that watch this show, and lots of both my parents are teachers. I work in the schools, as you know, and as a teacher in different ways.
yes,
So, wow. Okay, cool. Um, and here's the thing with that. I there's not really a way to separate, our personal experiences from our work. And
hmm,
in the sense that, like, we're doing it for ourselves and for the people we're working with and for the future we'd like to create for our families and for, those that we care for,
right.
directly and indirectly. And it's just good to know that you're, as much as you're really great at kind of letting this stuff go as best as you can, and nurturing your family life and your own self, that it is informing, that it's part of a strength that you have these experiences with your daughters. It doesn't, it makes it so that you can't necessarily be like, okay, la 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 la, this isn't important. Like, it's like
Right.
you're aware of how this could impact them. Have you had conversations with them about your work, and what do they think about it?
Yes, I have conversations with them all the time, and I hate to say it though, it sounds a little cheesy, but to them, I'm their hero, and like my older daughter, it's just like she's always, when I was in the military, she used to say, for example, Dad, you ought to think about going into social work because you would be a great counselor. We need more counselors like you in the field, right? And now I think about it now that I wouldn't say I'm a social worker, but I work with social workers and I see what they
Mhm.
do. And I'm like, she was right because, and when she mean more people like me, she's talking about more men, more males. We need more male allies.
Yeah. Well, and
And
they're out there. That's the thing. It's just that I don't think many of them think that they would actually be received, appreciated, valued. And that's part of, one of the things that I was like, please, Tony, come on the show. Yes, I love the other staff members that are in this rape crisis center, but the world is, I think, is asking for other positive male models of those that are actually allies, because there's so many that, for me, that isn't rare. I know of so many of them, but I think, given all the recent things going on in media and politics, with all these
right,
people that are been accused of different things, well, now we're seeing it being really slanted, and it's, the focus is in all the ones that are not the allies, and
right,
and
right,
then the ones that are the allies or have always been allies are almost getting eclipsed. And
right,
this discussion with you is, in addition to just, I wanted to chat and get to know you better,
right,
it's also so that we have this, hey, here's one of them, and you can choose this in volunteer work and being a contribution, and announcing that you're an ally in whatever way works for you. I mean, it doesn't have to be the way you're choosing it, right? But
right,
it's for people to remember that, yes, men like you exist, and
right.
so grateful for that.
Right, and it's funny you say that because going back to what you were saying, like how do my daughters see me? Yeah, they are my daughters. They always gonna see me as dad, and I always try to present an image of positivity regardless of whatever I'm doing with all my children. But it was funny. My daughters received what I was doing well, but when I first came to the center, it was mixed feelings from the clients.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
like for example, you work the crisis line. I have over like 2,000 hours on the crisis line myself because that's one aspect I volunteer. I actually volunteer working the crisis line, and I'll get some calls, and when they hear my voice, a male, and they're shocked,
Yeah,
right? And I'm like, hey, how can I help you? And they're taken aback. It's like, well, okay, wow, how do I take this?
yeah,
And And real quick story. One time I had a caller who called one time, and she was outraged that a male answered the call. A male advocate answered the call, and
Mhm.
she stated, "How dare they have a male working there at the Rape Crisis Center?"
Wow.
And I didn't know how to take that, but I did. I did what I was trained to do. I helped her through her situation, and she called back the next day to apologize. You know,
Yeah.
and say it's great what you're doing, and once she realized it, so
I wonder if
and
there
I
were more male volunteers and things, if that would also kind of cut into and undermine the lie that all men are horrible, that all men are
right,
abusers or violators or things like that. Because here
right,
you are, and you're meeting her wherever she's at in that moment, and
right,
you were able to guide her and be with her beyond it. And
and that's
then,
how we change the culture. That's how we change the
exactly.
culture.
And I think that's
Exactly,
exactly what's required is more of everyone, men and women, stepping up and being like, I'm an ally. I'm willing to talk about these things that are
exactly.
uncomfortable, that are secret and hidden, and that many people are trying to brush under the carpet, uh, so that we can all have something greater.
But this applies to all aspects of life.
Oh,
We need more
absolutely.
allies when we see the yes, of course. I want to get into the politics, but yes, we need more allies in all aspects of what makes this world turn. I'm telling you, when you see atrocities or stuff being committed and you say nothing and you are complicit, then you're part of the problem. So that's the way
Yeah.
I see it.
Thank you so much, Tony. Antonio, I call you Tony. And
No, it's fine. It's fine.
thank you so much for being on the show and taking the time. And I'm so glad that we didn't throw you off with being on call or anything, that we could fit this into
Oh
your
no, 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 no,
schedule. Um, and
no.
and thank you for honoring us with chatting on your personal time too. I know you're at home
Oh no, no.
now. Very
Hey,
much appreciate it. This is
you know I'm
such an
available
important topic.
24/7.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, just huge, huge thanks for you with that, with everything. If you all who are watching this now or in the future are interested in connecting with Antonio, we're going to have his contact information below. Please consider, if you know anyone in the Coastal Empire that would like to volunteer at the Rape Crisis Center, you feel free to contact Antonio directly, or go to the Rape Crisis Center's website, and all the information is there as well. Gosh, so many other resources we can talk about here. I know this is just scratching
Mhm.
the surface, Antonio. Um,
Yes.
if you like this chat, please go ahead and like the video, share it with anyone you think that would benefit from hearing this, be it survivors, allies, people that would consider volunteer work, that maybe they're dealing with PTSD, whatever that may be. Follow your awareness with everything that we're talking about here, y'all, and see who would benefit from this discussion. Thank you so much for watching this entire chat. If you've gotten to this point, I appreciate it. Please subscribe to our channel so that you can be notified for future videos. And you can check out the other past videos at choosingadifferentfuture.com. Thank you again, Antonio. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you for having me.
day.
You too. Thank you.